do these humanistic products and programs and also really stay focused on the profit, all right? Because that's what's unique about all of you, is you come from that solid background of being very analytical and making sure that profit is there. Because that's still the fundamentals of business, right? So I'm gonna ask you to address that point right now, and as we round up with what Tony and also what Payam has done to create Light DAO, you know, how are you integrating the focus on profit along with the focus on doing good for the world and using technology, leveraging technology for the benefit of humanity and not be extractive in any way? I think that's really a key for those of us in this room. So I don't have to go into it, is that it's really, that's part of our mission. How do we not be extractive anymore with business? And how do we benefit humanity on all levels? So if you can address that with how you're doing, and then Tony, when we get into what you're gonna be doing, and also Payam, what you're doing. But I am sensitive to time, so please, Romain, how have you dealt with that profit issue?
Okay. First of all, when I looked at the market, so we interviewed clients doing energy healing. We interviewed healers, and we looked at the market. And for me, the market was, the business model wasn't good because no one is taking accountability in a very unregulated market. So the first thing we've done is looking for what is a model based on trust. The trust is the pillar of everything, and now in the time of AI, trust is being actually attacked. So we need to really, well, not just because of AI, but it's very important to have this trust in mind for a business. And so I decided to go for more like a talent agency business where we look for healers. We take responsibility for looking for great ones. That's the first thing. But I'll give you an example of something I'm struggling with, because the model we are in, and when we're heart-led, it's really hard to work, to navigate through this, is legal stuff. So we need contracts with our healers. Now, fundamentally, contracts are fear-based products of capitalism. And I worked 10 years in Japan. They didn't used to have written contracts. They used to have just words, beautiful words that would be binding. Now, when I have to have these contracts with healers, I can tell you, my heart is breaking. And I went on trial with one of my lawyers because we've been fighting. And it's so hard when you want to build a heartless business to actually have contracts that reflect the intention and the beauty of what you want to co-create. Actually, we're co-creating. So yeah, and I discovered, thanks to Elana, right here, my friend Elana, that there is something called conscious contracts, which I had no idea about. So I'm going to use this. So this is, yeah, type of examples that I use to navigate through profitability, sustainability, and, you know, appealing to investors because we're fundraising, and yet being super, super clear on being heart-led.
So how many of you are entrepreneurs and founders here in this room? Okay, wow, all right, about 2/3 of you. So is this a real challenge that we're all facing all the time, right? How do we maintain, how do we stay in the heart and come from our soul and our desire to want to support and our desire for compassion, but still make money and be profitable, right? So I think this is something that we're all working through together. All right, so this is great that we have this community to be honest and be authentic, you know, like to go from one way to the other. How do we integrate this? So anyway, so Tony, if you can share a bit about what your challenges is in this arena and how you've been addressing or how you're still in the middle of the challenge of it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Who here is an MD or a PhD? A couple of you guys. When you were going through your MD or your PhD, did they ever tell you about the profit motive and how you're supposed to be commercializing your drug in order to satisfy a corporate overlord? Probably didn't, right? So, the vast majority of MDs and PhDs are not taught that, and the vast majority of early stage development work is not focused on that at all. Lab work, you know, doing like a petri dish experiment, doing a mouse experiment, you know, getting it published at, like an ASCO or a SITC or any of these like peer-reviewed journals or like these conferences. It's just part of the checklists. And for an early stage biotech business, especially for me in the first 5 years, it was just about doing what all the other MD PhDs were doing and just knocking down those earlier milestones. When my two crises happened, my mother's cancer and then my heart condition, I had a lot of time to do a lot of introspective inner work. And what I came to realize is that actually, in order for us to take our business to the next level and try to bridge the gap between the heart-led as well as the profitability or the profit motive, what we need to do is actually not just think about what are the things that we have been taught and trained in the industry that we are supposed to do to drive milestones. We have to actually look ahead at the very, very final, like end point and work our way backwards, which means how do we actually talk to the guys who will eventually lead us to a large-scale collaboration deal with existing drugs in the immuno-oncology portfolios of these large pharma companies. So one thing that we did after I went through the recovery from my heart condition is that we actually took some extra time away from pushing the milestones, and we actually scheduled interviews and advisory board council discussions with the chief medical officers and the chief science officers of folks who represented the GSKs, the AbbVies, the BMSs, the Mercks.
Okay, can we not get into that detail? Because
yeah.
you saw that you just came and asked us to wrap up.
Of course, no, I appreciate that. And the too long didn't read out of that is that with those specific data sets that they gave us, we completely reconfigured our data collection strategy to be optimized for not just what's going to actually get us a nice publication in a medical journal, but also what's going to actually allow us to synergistically build portfolio that works within the context of the drug industry. And you might think that's kind of doing a deal with the devil, but the reality is that in a cancer treatment context, any additional optimization you can do to current portfolio assets increases the total addressable population of humans who can medically benefit from those treatments, which leads to more profits and ultimately less cancer for those patients. So that's the fundamental shift that we made in the last 5 years, and I think we are also finishing up a fundraising round now, and I think that with that done, we should be able to produce the data sets that these guys are looking for, and then be happily on our way in the coming 2 to 4 years, licensed or acquired or whatever that exit pathway might be with those pharma companies. That is the big twist for us.
So thank you for making this
Oh,
transition. Okay, guys. Hello.
It's okay. Take this one.
Okay, so thank you for making a transformation. I think that most of us in this room, that's part of our job, is to change the system. All right, and the technology is there now to help us change the system, because we don't have to do things the same old way. Even in areas like medical technology, and there's the tools for that. So all of you here, we're the change makers. All right, we're going to be the ones who are going to break the rules and make it easier for everybody. So Payam, again, thank you so much for having founded Light DAO. So for those of you, again, here's information on who Light DAO is and what we're about. So Payam, what shifted for you to have created this, and how are you looking at creating a totally new model? I mean, business models are made by humans, right? So why do we have to do things the old way? It's up to us to create new business models that will incorporate goodness for humanity and profit. Because we all need profit to sustain growth, right? And profit is necessary to realize the dreams that we want to create. So Payam, how are you doing that?
So I'm going to try to pack in a lot here in like 2 minutes. Part of the transformation for me was through a daily journal practice of gratitude and affirmations. Every day writing 3 things I'm grateful for in life and 3 positive affirmations through I am statements. This is the most powerful 1 minute a day that we could spend for ourselves, is to outwardly express what we're grateful for and step into the power of our own written word by affirming ourselves of who we are. I did that every day. I still do, writing these gratitude and affirmation prompts. And as I did this every day, I actually felt my vibrational frequency and my consciousness expanding. And after 6 months of doing that, I reached a point where I wrote, I am light every day. And through this practice of finding this light that we all are, I knew part of my purpose on this planet is to be light and a message of light. And fast forward, and if you want to talk about that more, I'm happy to. Launched Light DAO 2 years ago, and what we're empowering is a sovereign-based ecosystem of co-creation, where the world moves from a for-profit model to an all-profit model. Because instead of thinking about how I create value and extract that value into a for-profit machine, for example, when we spend our time or energy or value that we create on a platform like Meta or Facebook, that value or time or energy that we spend turns into value or profit for Facebook. Now, in the Light DAO world, the value that we create or provide, the value comes back to us. And in that world, that value is being retained by the ecosystem, that it's empowering more values-aligned ways of being to create that value. So what I say is when we create value in the alignment with who we are, that's our purpose in life. When we're doing the things that we love with the purpose and our aligned values, that's the passion. When we create value in that alignment of our values with that purpose, that value comes back and you can call that profit. And that profit moves from a P-R-O-F-I-T to a profit of self, or P-O-R-P-H-E-T. Because that's truly what wealth and fulfillment and happiness is in life, is when we really know the value of ourself and the wealth that is. And that's really the paradigm that we're empowering through this token-based economy, which is how that value is created and returned. And also is realigning the structure of money. Money right now is just a tool that we use to create value. But what if the value that we create is actually aligned in our own values? So the way we've developed that architecturally in this token-based economy is everybody who creates value in that ecosystem is rewarded in a decentralized way where the entire ecosystem is in alignment to exchange that value with shared vision, mission, and values such that everybody in the ecosystem is more abundant by exchanging that value to create more abundance for the entire ecosystem. So it's a sovereign nonprofit. And again, I love this stuff because we're really at the intersection of AI, blockchain, consciousness, and community.
Love that. Could you repeat that again? That's so great because that's what this conference is all about. At the intersection of what, please? Let's round up with that.
AI, blockchain, consciousness, and community.
Yay! So these new models, you see how technology is helping us to create new models, what I call circle of abundance. That's what I call it, is a circle of abundance. So thank you all for being the chargers, being the change makers, being the leaders of creating these different kind of models. Payam again for creating Light DAO, that we're a global network of about 4,000 people who are really passionate about this. We have chapters all around the world. And Tony, again, thank you for what you're doing in the medical area. And thank you for what you're doing for the healers and the energy healers around the world. So thank you, gentlemen. So thank you all for your attention.